Back. You're watching People and Politics here on AM Live. We continue with the conversation. Aaron Chiriotu, you're calling on me? Yeah?
Yeah, I was saying, you shouldn't forget about Muhoroni as well, please.
Muhoroni?
Yeah.
Yes.
And Otiende Amollo was there. So
that one we will not forget.
Yes.
Otiende will tell us, and of course,
what happened in Muhoroni.
What is happening on the front of me. In fact, let's just get there so that we can see Otiende to tell us if this is the true depiction of what happened yesterday. The Star is holding this particular splash this morning. Why Raila was heckled in Kisumu. Odinga has become the face of President Uhuru's legacy programs. That is what the flagger reads there. So what the Star is telling us, was heckling there yesterday? You were there.
Well, first of all, I would understand the excitement of Aaron Chiriot, because he recently told us he attended Raila's rally in Sondu when we know he couldn't have attended. And now that there's a story about Muhoroni, he's very excited about it. What I can tell you, first of all, is the headline of the Star is misleading, because the issue that arose was not in Kisumu. It was in a place called Chiga in Muhoroni. Secondly, and I think the nation has captured it much more accurately, a section, and there were probably about between 5 and 7 boys who came into the meeting, tried to heckle, but the residents themselves roughed them up and evicted them. So it was not like the residents were opposed or that Raila was heckled. It was about 5 to 7 boys who came with placards. I think that they'd been hiding the placards, then they just chucked them suddenly. And immediately they chucked them, the residents themselves got irate and, evicted them. As I understand it, so it was not heckling, it was not the resident, it was a few of them. And thereafter, when we went to now the site of the meeting in a place called Ombei, and it was a very big crowd, which I'm sure you'd be able to see, they were all very happy with that project. The 5 to 7 boys, as I understand it, their issue was not with Raila, but with the county government. And their claim was, and I think the nation has tried to analyze it, that the land, which is about 500 acres, on which the special economic zone project is to be built,
yes,
was historically acquired by the then Ahero County Council. And that at the time it was acquired, it was their ancestral land. And that land was acquired, it came into the council, and therefore it has come into the county as trust land. And that is the land on which now the zone is to be built. So their issue is not that they are opposed to it. Their issue is, to the extent that now a special economic zone is to be built, they want what you would call historical compensation for the land, so which is a separate issue, and which, to the best of my knowledge, no one has even said that there would be no compensation, because historical acquisition of land, we know the history of how lands are acquired and all. And if there's to be any compensation, then of course it will always accrue. So it wasn't a big issue. Now, now that I'm talking about it, let me talk about that tour. That was a highly successful tour,
yes,
which took the whole day. We started by visiting that place for the special economic zone, and the minister, Munya, briefed the residents in terms of what they were to do. In fact, indicated that even that 500 acres is not enough. We may need to get more land. And the residents were happy. And we thereafter came back to now Kisumu. We visited the oil jetty, which is being run by KPC. And it was very impressive, because everybody who was there, Minister Munyes, briefed all that were there. And the only thing that they're waiting for is for Uganda to finish its bit so that they can start transporting oil through the lake. And the indication is that Uganda will be finishing theirs in 2 months. And in 2 months in June, which is a very good thing. We then visited the port, the old port of Kisumu, which has lain in disuse for decades. And even the big ships, and we saw one there, which used to ply the lake during the East African Community Days, are just lying there fallow. So the plan is to revive Kisumu port as a gateway to East Africa.
Right.
And overall, everyone, and in all the places we visited, everyone was very happy with all those initiatives.
So there was no heckling at all?
There was no heckling.
But the question is, since the handshake then, has Raila lost grip actually on the ground as far as his popularity is concerned? Is it tapering off? If you were to take a poll today, do you think he will still stand a chance to be the man that he has been in this particular region?
Of course he is. And if you visit that area or you were in that visit yesterday, then you would know. And if at all there was to be any fear that Raila has lost grip on account of the handshake, then you would see it even in terms of the reaction of some of us who are, elected politicians and all. The grip is very firm. The issue was and has always been that there are those who want immediate demonstrable benefits of the handshake. But ultimately, as Raila and Uhuru said, the handshake was not about selfish gains. The handshake was about where this country is to be in future. If by happenstance, as in this case, the historical problems of politics has caused a gateway to the larger East Africa like Kisumu to lie in disuse, and on account of the handshake, the government now chooses to embrace it, not just for the benefit of the residents of Kisumu, but for the whole country. Because Kisumu is a natural gateway to Uganda, to northern Tanzania, to Congo, to Rwanda, to Burundi, and it cheapens things. For example, Munyes briefed the meeting that jetty has a capacity of delivering about a million liters of oil per day, which essentially takes out of the road 260 trucks that ply the route between Kisumu and Kampala every day. Now that reduces accidents, that reduces congestion, that reduces bribery on the road, and it helps the entire country. So in my view, by the handshake and causing the government to realize that by ignoring Kisumu, you are punishing the whole country, and the government therefore now decides to embrace that part of the world for the benefit of the country, then it benefits everyone.
All right, so let's hear from Aaron Cheruiyot. You think that this particular handshake, in a way, as pundits are putting it, did not neuter Raila Odinga?
Well,
has it been neutralized?
There are two things that you need to understand the BAL. There's development and there's the politics of it. Development-wise, I would say that this tour that Otiende and his party leader were on is very noble, and is something that is worth being supported. As a neighbor of Kisumu, because I come from Kericho, which is a next door neighbor to Kisumu, just 20 or 30 minutes away. In fact, from my home, right from my village, to get me to Kisumu town, it's hardly 30 minutes. Therefore, any meaningful development that comes to Kisumu, I'd be a fool to oppose it. And I support the initiative of what government is trying to do to set up the whole region and the special economic zone, trying to revive the shipping line across Kisumu and the East African region. It's a very welcome thing, and it must be celebrated for what it is. But what Otiende doesn't tell you is the politics part of it, despite the fact that he's a politician. And if you want to understand some of the challenges they are facing, all you need to do is you need to look at the picture that the nation has put, especially on top of a headline where you have the ministers standing behind Raila. Then there is Otiende's silent demeanor.
This is
you can see he's about to take off any minute. No, the upper part, it's called the ear.
Yes.
That photo. I'm sure the man in a white shirt, silent and about to take off his Otiende. Otiende forgets that he's my friend. So I know when he's happy, I know when he's sad, I know when he's frightened.
He's looking a bit skittish.
I can tell you. You can see he's not even looking ahead, he's looking down. Because of, I'll tell you this, Otiende, and perhaps a better understanding of the challenges that this project runs, because of Muhoroni continues to be a disputed area. Just like this town that Vihiga and Kisumu competes about, I forget the name, Maseno. Just like Maseno continues to elicit a lot of debate about the original ownership, Muhoroni has similar challenges between the county government of Kisumu and that of Kericho. And in fact, on that account, we do not agree with the task force on sugar sector, that this one that has proposed the privatization of these sugar milling factories. Because while Muhoroni, the factory, is in Kisumu, the nucleus and the sugar plantation, to a large extent, 90% of the land is in the county of Kericho. And so long as we haven't been assured of this continued issues, we shall not support this plan. That is the same kind of challenge that this project continues to face. Until such a time as you have addressed people and assured them that they are not going to lose their land to these sort of government programs. You know, you must always remember, Otiende, that history has a habit of repeating itself. So Kisumu residents have got reason to be worried, especially when they remember the ghost of the molasses plant and, you know, that kind of thing. So when they get afraid and they raise a kind of concern, you shouldn't just dismiss them with a wave of a hand. It was important for you to address them and say, we understand the issues that are being raised. In fact, it was wrong for you to have gone there without first government. What was the hurry anyway of going to launch this particular project without having gone through the motions of ensuring that, first of all people that lay claim to this particular land, their issues have been addressed now to a point where by the time you're taking the cabinet secretaries together with Raila to go and address this gathering, all issues have been sorted. Therefore, it is a very poor way of executing government projects. A point of concern, though, is that I'm happy that at least you, together with the PM and the ministers, were able to see the Kisumu oil jetty and see the kind of initiative that government through Kenya Pipeline Corporation has undertaken in that region and what it means potentially in terms of economic fortunes to Kisumu and to us as a country. While doing that, Otiende, please do not forget that the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of Kenya Pipeline, who built that Kisumu oil jetty, finished it in time and on budget, today continues to face trial in our courts for, quote unquote, carrying out a project that had not been budgeted for.
This is Mr. Sang?
This Mr. Joe Sang. And you remember, I have continued to raise the irony of some of these issues that the very people, Otiende, Raila, that have been on the forefront castigating this particular gentleman and saying, oh, how, you know, when you're corrupt, when you try to raise issues, they want to trivialize and reduce it as if it's a community issue. Yet the fellow who delivered this particular project, he's not in court because money was lost or taxpayers paid for more than what was expected. He's in court allegedly for doing a project that government had not budgeted for. Yet there are letters from head of public service, from his cabinet secretary, instructing him to complete that project as soon as possible so that Uganda, by the time they do theirs in June of 2019, we shall be able to revive the fortunes of that region. Until such a times as we are able to address such conflicting, glaring, obvious errors of law, we cannot say that we are serious on this whole corruption.
But the question is, did he follow the laid down procedures as well?
Of course.
Yeah, if you have letters. No,
listen,
no fact,
listen,
did you follow the laid down
Lebal,
procedures?
I want you to listen to me. He is not in court for that. What he is in court for is for actually doing that project. Not for loss of money, not for not following procedure. His charge sheet reads that he did a project that had not been budgeted
But
for.
if it was not budgeted for, how come you actually went full steam ahead and did this project and it was not in the first place budgeted for?
Do you understand how a parastatal works? Yeah. As a chief executive officer, you cannot just wake up and do something. If you've been instructed by your board, who have been instructed by a minister, who has been instructed by a head of public service.
But it is your honor to say this is not laid down procedures. That's why we have structures, isn't it?
My friend, I don't think you're hearing my point.
No, the thing is, I get you, where you're saying you're pushed to a corner because this is your boss. But where you actually said that it was also the honors of Njiraini to say, or maybe to back down and say, I don't need this extension. It is also the honors of these particular CEOs who are on that particular position to say this is not the laid down procedures.
But what about the people? What about the people who gave the instructions? For example, this particular board that gave instructions that say, please execute and implement this particular project expeditiously.
Let's leave it at that. Let's hear from Jacob Midio on this as well. I want to know, do you think the handshake has actually neutralized Raila? Looking at what also we had in the Daily Nation on Sunday, especially on the fight on corruption, I think that was on page 4 of the Daily Nation. This is what it says. If we just pick it up, Diana, that is a sidebar story there. Musalia says former PM's silence is not healthy at all, right? And Amani National Congress Party leader Musalia Mudavadi has cautioned that the continued silence of opposition leader Raila Odinga could jeopardize the country's war on graft. And he was, while expressing his support for the handshake, he reiterated that Kenyans want to realize the benefits of a close working relationship between Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta?
Well, when Musalia did that press conference, I was with him. I stood next to him. That is not what he said. He said that Raila is not a member of the Jubilee government. He is helping the Jubilee government to create an environment where we should fight graft, or we must fight graft. So, but has the handshake neutralized Raila? I don't think so. I think handshake was an abrupt thing which is going to help, which actually must be explained over a period of time. And I think going around Nyanza, I think it's largely understood that you need it. And you know, Debal, Nyanza and Western Kenya, look at the whole issue of the sugar sector. Look at the lake. You know, Lake Victoria is one of the biggest taxpayers to the exchequer. But the lake region gets very little until devolution. Got very little, and Martin Shikuku used to explain it so articulately. So very little compared to what they give. So for the first time, we must thank Raila for at least trying to spur development, because you must go to our areas and see the kind of poverty that is state created. Go to the sugar sector, go to the fish sector, to the extent that the Jubilee government has even allowed importation of fish from China. That is how impoverished by the state our people are. So anything that brings development, we must welcome. We cannot oppose development. Secondly, my brother Aaron, two things. You can't get away with that statement about Muhoroni. The boundaries of this country were demarcated long time ago. Muhoroni is in Nyanza, but there's nothing that stops Muhoroni even being in Rift Valley. We are all one people, but we cannot come to the national television and make insightful statements. When you try, you have just said you will not accept that project because the nucleus of Muhoroni is in the Rift Valley. But that statement is insightful, and I hope somebody picks it so that we clarify that, because just last year there was confrontation of that border. That confrontation, we can avoid it when leaders don't give the citizens false impression, because we are there, people have farms along that border, which these people have incited people over the years, and they come and ban. I've been there twice when people are fighting to quell the fight, and I've seen the amount of property people lose. I was there the day they burnt the home of the late PS Nalo, and they're doing it in broad daylight. They take their cows and they do it without fear of the law. And lastly, this issue, Dibal, which Cheriot is talking about, the jetty. I did not get it that Raila, Honorable Otiende, and all these people went to give that jetty a clean bill of health. That jetty was built, it is complete, but built irregularly. That is why the CEO is in court. And I don't think we can come here. It's like me coming here now to begin defending somebody who is in court simply because he's a Luo. I think we must transcend that imagination, because our country, no, that's what you're doing. Remember the case of Kerich, case of all those people that are from your ethnic community. You always come here to try to justify why the law is against them. We will not achieve our objective of fighting corruption if the people who are perpetrating corruption are defended by the people who should actually castigate them. A thief is a thief. If they are from your village, let them, if they are in court, court is the arbiter. Let them be cleared by court, but not on national television.
Thank you. Let's hear from Wamatangi. And of course, those matters are in court. We cannot discuss them extensively during the show as well.
Yes, Debal, you know, that question, in my view, is relevant. I mean, it's a question that must be asked, because You know, in this country, since most of us came to, in our generation, and you know, we are not young, and you can attest to that using the evidence that you first showed us there, when you showed the photo of J.J. Kamotho and Prudence Bushnell. You see, everybody here could remember exactly when and who that was. That tells you that this is not a very young panel, you know, if we remember that clearly. But what I'm saying is that, you know, since the time when we came to be as politicians and as leaders, and everybody anyway in this country, Raila Amollo Odinga has been known to be the anti-system man. He has been known to be in the opposition throughout. And he supposedly, as it were, and of course from his political exploits, seemed never to agree with anything then that was pro-system. And because that is the image he has cut for himself, now when suddenly people start seeing him seemingly to agree with an institution and a government that is in place, people must wonder, you know, is this the same man that we know? And how then do we deal with him in this new version? And so that is why you find that that absolutely there has to be to be that, you know, lethargy in quotes. Secondly, Deval, see, there is this thing, and I believe you people in the media have understood it and perfected it well, including in language. When you refer to political happenings, you always use the term political theater, and when you are using that term political theater, what the inferment is that you know, in the normal psyche of people, we have had this tendency where people just want to allude and are attracted more to the action movie attraction in politics, such that you find, and these politicians will tell you, if you go to a rally today and start telling people how we are going to smoothen this road, how we are going to build a new stadium, and how we are going to be giving you milk, that does not excite people. But when you stand in a stadium and start telling people how, you know, Otiende Amollo ni fala, you know, jinga sana, then people now start clapping and getting excited by that syndrome. And I believe that is the hangover. It's what they are missing in the man they knew then as Raila Amollo Odinga. And that's why I said that question would be relevant. But then, what should we say? Because at the end of the day, and I've addressed these issues so many times, including with my people who elect me. You see, now, at the end of it all, when you go now to ask them, how is our county? People will tell you, but nothing is happening. We can't see development. I mean, we are stressed. We can't pay fees. And it is expensive to live. But when it comes to, you know, leveraging and using the advantage that people have in determining, one, who is going to lead them, the caliber of that person, the qualifications of that person, the etiquette of that person, the leadership style of that person, they will go for the brawl. And that's why I would want to take the opportunity to say to our people then that I believe it is not only important, it is essential for development, for things to happen the way they are, that we should start prioritizing, appreciating that, for example, when a leader like the former Prime Minister, and I've said the former Prime Minister to refer to that term Prime Minister because there was a time when he served in government, and when he spoke government policy, when he spoke about projects which are being installed and instilled, and he did that, he played that role, and it went well. And then it's important for us to start appreciating that there's time for everything. That when he speaks about development, when he goes to tell people that we're going to change this area of Kisumu and Nyanza and bring in government sponsored projects to change the lives of the people, it should be something that people should appreciate, you know, for that matter, and know that this is going to change their lives. When it comes to politics, then now we go and now start dealing with Raila the man and Otiende Amollo the person, Aaron Cheruiyot the senator, and myself, you know, probably as a senator, and I believe Jacoyo might be wanting now this time to run for governor of Siaya. You know, I've heard the rumors on ground that that he might be wanting to go that way. You know, so.
Ujakoyo, yeah.
That's what I heard from the grapevine. Anyway, he can deny it, but for sure.
I like this other one. Yeah. I like the version of Cheruiyot.
Let's say finally for Eseli.
Sibal, I think it's the Nyanza leaders have been heard saying that opposition is not, Luo is not opposition, and opposition is not just all about Luo. That we no longer want to be in opposition, we want to take part in government. Without Luo, there's no opposition. There's been such things said. So of course, when something comes up that, oh, Raila heckled, it makes news, so that newspapers can sell and whatever. But to me, I think it's important to realize that for me, coming from home to Nairobi, actually it's much farther than going to Kampala. It's nearer for me to go to Kampala than to come to Nairobi. In fact, in the olden days, most of the people from my place used to work in Uganda, not in Kenya. And in fact, right now as we speak, many youngsters are in education institutions in Uganda, not in Kenya. So there's been a long history of relationship with Uganda. But right now, if you go to Uganda, you'll find that Museveni has built so many industrial parks that are creating employment for Ugandans, to the point that very soon the reverse will start happening, because our businessmen who are here, manufacturers who are here, who have been tasked and robbed and done bad things, have actually shifted over to Uganda. So the tables might turn. Yet for us in Kenya, we messed up our land tenure system and the way we behave where land is concerned, such that right now we're trying to play catch up, to come up with export promotion centers, whatever, those industrial parks and so on, when all the land is gone. So whenever you try to acquire some land for it, then you might get the sentiments like what was in Muhoroni. I saw recently my governor in Bugoma he still has a similar problem around Webuye, where he wants to acquire land to put an industrial park. But I'm trying to warn Kenyans that the way we are, very soon things will be reversed, and Uganda will be way ahead of us. So I think the idea of industrial parks and so on is very good. But my question is this: is the handshake all about Nyanza? What about the other Raila collaborators, where they come from? Do their areas matter, or they don't matter anymore? The other question is, the oil jetty will transport all these liters of oil to maybe Uganda, or because Uganda is one setting up or whatever. What about other countries like Rwanda and so on? But that is from going in that direction to Uganda. But we know Uganda has oil. So very soon, they'll be exploiting that oil. Is that jetty going to be used in reverse to export the oil? Or is it one way? Because if it's one way, then it has got a very short lifespan. Once Uganda starts refining their oil and whatever, then this export of oil will be a very short-term kind of thing. These are some of the things that we need to look at. But the critical thing is, as Kenyans, we need to think strategically. Because I think so far Kenya has lived ad hoc for too long, without realizing that for economic survival of the country and progression, we need to think strategically vis-a-vis our neighbors. Where do we want to be in future? But otherwise, this current ad hoc way of thinking is not helping us, such that if you want to do any major project, there's so much money that goes into land compensation. Because our land tenure system, I think we need to relook at it. Otherwise, without that, we are facing a problem, especially, as I told you where I come from. In fact, as we speak now, many people from the county I come from actually are crossing over to Uganda and leasing huge tracts of land for farming, because there are no large tracts of land in Kenya anymore. So we are facing a problem that we must sit down and think strategically for the future of this country.
Right, thank you. Right, I just want to
There are some questions that have been posed, including by Eseli. I think they ought to be answered. And some were posed by Aaron, because if we leave them hanging...
What questions? I can't remember the questions.
For example, the questions Eseli has just posed. Is it only the jetty, will it only serve Uganda? And what if they have oil and all those things? I think let's put this in perspective. Number one, and this ought to be made very clear, and I agree with Jakoyo, Aaron Cheruiyot cannot use this forum to cause excitement and disaffection. Only last year, the governor of Nandi made similar sentiments, and those sentiments ignited conflict in the Muhoroni area on the boundary between Nandi and Kisumu. It took quite a bit of time, and you remember I actually indicated that he ought to be arrested for those kind of sentiments. Aaron Cheruiyot is in danger of being arrested for this kind of sentiment because, first of all, the political and administrative boundaries in this country are very well set out, even in the Constitution. And any review of these boundaries must be done in a legal and proper context. And even the time frame is stipulated. So to make statements such as though that saying, oh, large parts, Muhoroni is a disputed area, large parts lie, I don't know, in Nandi, those are very unfortunate statements, and they ought not to be made in a panel like this. Secondly, you know, whenever Dr. Alwale is here, I think he usually has a target in terms of how many times he must mention Raila's name, and I've told him, today is not here, so Raila's name is not being mentioned as much. But I think Aaron Cheruiyot has a new task to mention my name at least 20 times. He's doing very well because he's done about 17. He has 3 to go. Maybe, I hope it's not on a similar instruction that once you achieve it, there are benefits that go with that. The point to be made here, if today there's a bridge that collapses on the way to your home, and your governor decides to make that bridge irregularly by taking money that is not allocated to make that bridge, when you cross and use that bridge to your home, it's not an endorsement of the money and the process of making that bridge. Under the Constitution and under the law, there is no obligation to execute an illegal order. You cannot say, I had to do this because my board told me, or my superior told me, or the president told me. If you do that illegally, if you are told to do this, it is implied in that instruction that follow the law and do all the procedures that required. If you decide to go for a shortcut, then you cannot say that I should not be blamed because I was instructed. And therefore, the defense that Aaron Cheruiyot is putting here of the charges is really, really very weak. But I think what's more instructive is that he brings even people like me into that. How I control the prosecution, how I control the money and those processes, I don't know. In any event, as far as I know, there is no charge sheet that can read the way Aaron Cheruiyot was reading. A charge sheet must disclose a criminal offense. It will not be a description such as that.
Thank you.
And the less said about it, the better. Lastly, as I understand, and in reference to Dr. Eseli, the arrangement, there are 2 points to be made. First of all, in terms of the arrangement for the oil. The oil is not just going to Uganda for the consumption in Uganda. It is supposed to be a gateway into Rwanda, into Congo, into Burundi, and also the northern part of Tanzania.
Right, thank you.
But to execute it, as I understand, the way we recently gave the Uganda government some land around Naivasha, I understand there's a reciprocal arrangement that the Ugandan government is supposed to allocate some land for the Kenya government in Kampala, which would be for its exclusive use in all the exports, the ones that come, you know, through the lake, the ones that come through SGR, the ones that come through any other routing for onward transmission to the larger East Africa.
Thank you, thank you. We want just to give you, to clarify briefly, 2 minutes.
2
minutes. Move on to other discussions.
Even 2 minutes is more than enough because, you know, there's something that Otiende and Jakoyo must understand. That first of all, they come from Siaya, not Kisumu. And they do not own the exclusive rights of what people can say about certain regions. What I said, I am extremely conscious of what I mentioned. I have spoken to a disputed nucleus of Muhoroni Sugar Company, which I want to challenge my friend here, Jakoyo. Please go to the National Lands Office and ask for this map that you're describing and saying that every region of a country is mapped out and see where it lies, if it doesn't lie in Kericho County. That is the truth. You know, we cannot try to, because of political sensitivities, not speak the truth about certain issues. Secondly, you know, the mistake you make, Jakoyo, is that you imagine I say it because the people who occupy that particular parcel of land come from my community. It's not true. They are Luos, but they live in Kericho County, and they vote for me as well. Therefore, as their representative, it is the truth of the matter. They will be disinherited of their own property. Who tells you that there are no Luos who live in Kericho County? I can tell you without a fear of contradiction that that particular region where there are about six polling stations that are predominantly Luo, but they vote in the county of Kericho. Therefore, I was not speaking about it because they're Kalenjin like me. And that is a misconception that you need to clear yourselves of that, and imagine that every time we speak is because I want to say the land belongs to a particular community. It belongs to a particular region. Secondly, just quickly, a quick clarification on, because I've seen also they want to predominantly take me on this particular issue. I want to read for Otiende because he has asked for this charge sheet that he says. The charge sheet that I'm talking about, and I want you to check because you're an officer of the court, confirm that it reads that Joe Sang is in court because of engaging, this is what the charge sheet says, engaging in a project without prior planning, contrary to section 45 2C as read with section 48 of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, Act number 3 of 2003. That is what the charge sheet reads. And I have shown Jakoyo the letter. I'll still show him the letter from the office of a president that tells this CEO, please ensure that this project is completed and be ready for launch by 31st of December 2017. What is so difficult about that? And assuming, if you wanted to take the line of Otiende, that if you're instructed to partake in an illegality, you are not supposed to partake in the same. Therefore, it begs a further question. Right. What about the people who gave this instruction? But what happens to them?
I thought we agreed that this matter is in court.
Yeah,
and if it's in court,
but it doesn't mean we suspend common sense.
No,
you know, Jakoyo has accused me
to the merits and demerits of the case itself.
But you see,
I don't want us to
Jakoyo has accused me of something.
No. A witness in that court.
Just
he should go and present
for
himself
reading,
as a
for reading
witness.
The charge sheet.
No.
For reading the charge sheet.
I think you should be a witness for Mr. Sang.
For reading a charge sheet.
No. For all these things you are trying to argue here, if they're the truth, then you should go and help him argue them in court.
You know, final thing, because Jakoyo accused me that every time I rush here to defend people from my community, I think I must come out clear on this as well. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm an elected representative of people. Of all these people that have been accused, there is none that have spoken about who doesn't come from my county. If there are people that I predominantly don't have a role to speak about, I'm always quiet on this matter. And there's many examples. The only people have come here and given their side of the story is one, this particular Joe Sang, and the lady from Kenyatta National Hospital. Because as the elected representatives, I'd be abrogating my responsibilities if I don't speak about my constituents.
Right,
just like I speak about many other issues.
Let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that. I want us to